Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, our mission, really, is to distill the core knowledge you need to truly understand the complexity and, let's face it, the value of custom deck building. We're not just looking at, wood and nails here. We're analyzing a whole stack of sources that treat a deck as a serious engineering project. And that's especially critical when you're building in these challenging, wet climates. Think heavy rain, big temperature swings.
Yeah, absolutely.
A deck is really a fundamental extension of your home, and because of those environmental pressures we mentioned, it represents a significant long-term investment, so it needs to be engineered correctly right from the start.
That's exactly the right frame for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Our sources really hammer home that choosing a custom builder goes way beyond just how it looks. You're basically hiring someone to engineer a structure that matches your vision, sure, but also one that can actively stand up to local conditions. We're talking that constant battle against moisture, UV exposure,
Right.
the stress from seasons changing. So when you partner with a pro, a custom builder, they're essentially guaranteeing three key things to protect that investment you mentioned. First, a design tailored exactly for how you live. Second, selecting materials that are genuinely weather resistant, optimized for where you are. And third, just long-lasting craftsmanship, backed by real structural know-how. That partnership, that's the difference between a deck lasting 5 years and maybe 50.
I like that emphasis on engineering. It definitely sets the stage for our first big area, customizing beyond the square foot. We are moving way past the standard 10 by 10 square deck idea here. This is where that personalized design process tackles the practical stuff, optimized drainage, strict safety standards, which are just crucial in wet places. And the sources details some surprisingly varied design options, things you can do to really maximize your outdoor living space, even on tricky land. Like if you've got a sloped property, an elevated deck becomes almost necessary. Or if you want different zones for, say, eating and lounging, you might look at multi-level setups. And then, of course, for tighter spots, maybe rooftop decks for those great views.
What's fascinating here is that the customization goes deeper than just height and shape, It's really about making sure the deck fits with the house's architecture, naturally, but also maximizes how you can actually use the space. Good custom builders are looking at things like which way the wind blows, sun exposure, and critically, how water is going to interact with the whole structure.
Speaking of maximizing utility and water, two specific designs really stood out in the sources, especially for dealing with constant rain or unique house layouts. Covered decks and wraparound decks. Can you maybe break down why those options demand that extra custom expertise?
Sure. So the wraparound deck, the kind that connects maybe multiple doors or parts of the house, that needs really careful structural planning. You have to make sure it integrates smoothly and stays stable, potentially across different foundation points. The geometry is just, more complex.
Okay, makes sense.
But for those wet climates, the covered deck, that's often less about looks and more about guaranteed usability. It basically turns the space into a year-round outdoor room. But, and this is a big but, that cover needs specific roofing, proper guttering systems, and they have to integrate perfectly with the deck's structure underneath. They have to handle torrential rain without dumping water back onto the house foundation or wrecking the deck itself. It's like needing double protection.
That totally makes sense. You're essentially making the deck act like a roof for whatever's below it, maybe even literally.
Yeah.
But this level of custom engineering, all this detailed planning, it sounds expensive. Is this where hidden costs tend to sneak in, or does getting that quality design right up front actually save money later?
This raises an important question, doesn't it? Value versus upfront cost. And yes, while custom design is an investment initially, it helps avoid potentially astronomical costs down the road. Think foundation repairs. For instance, if a standard off-the-shelf design lets water pool near your home's foundation year after year, you're looking at long-term erosion, moisture damage, serious structural issues for the main house. A good custom builder designs some proper airflow and drainage right from day one. It's almost like structural insurance.
Okay, structural insurance, I like that. So the design handles stability, water runoff. But once you've got the structure plan, the real longevity decision seems to land on the second major point, the materials you pick. We should probably walk the listener through the three main types that kept coming up in our sources.
Agreed. Yeah, for any deck, especially in a damp area, the material choice basically defines how much work it'll be and how long it'll last. Let's start with composite decking. It's surged in popularity, and for good reason. It's incredibly resilient against moisture and rot. It's essentially a mix of wood fibers and recycled plastic. That plastic encapsulation is key, stops water getting in, which is, the big enemy of natural wood.
Right.
This means minimal upkeep, which is a huge plus. Leads to a long lifespan, great resistance to fading, cracking, warping, all that stuff.
Composite definitely sounds like the winner for just, well, lasting a long time with low maintenance. But a lot of homeowners posit the upfront cost premium, right? Is there a genuine break-even point where the lack of maintenance actually makes it cheaper than wood in the long run?
That's a fair question. And the sources strongly suggest that, yes, that break-even point is often reached surprisingly quickly, maybe within, say, 7 to 10 years. It depends a bit on local costs for staining and sealing wood, of course. But if you factor in the cost, both time and money, of sealing a natural wood deck every couple of years, well, composite often becomes financially better over its lifespan, which can easily be 25 years or more with very little fuss.
Okay, 7 to 10 years isn't actually that long in the life of a house. Interesting. Now, you mentioned needing sort of dual-layer protection for covered decks. What about situations where you need absolute waterproofing, like maybe a balcony on the second floor that sits directly over an enclosed porch or sunroom?
Ah, good point. That's exactly where vinyl decking systems come in. Specifically, the use of waterproof membranes. Think of this material less like traditional decking boards and more like a really durable, finished roofing material that you happen to walk on. It's usually applied as a sealed sheet, and it's designed for 100% waterproof protection. It creates this fully sealed surface, ensuring no leaks, no moisture gets to the area below. Perfect for spots where, failure just isn't an option.
Got it. So composite for general low maintenance, vinyl for critical waterproofing, and then finally for listeners who maybe still love the look and feel of traditional materials, there's cedar wood. What are the main trade-offs there?
Cedar definitely offers that beautiful natural aesthetic, and you can get custom stain options that, let's be honest, synthetic materials don't perfectly replicate. Plus, it has natural oils that give it some inherent resistance to insects and decay. However, in a really harsh, wet climate, even cedar needs consistent, high-quality sealing to prevent checking those little surface cracks and eventually rot. It's just more work.
And sustainability, how do these stack up?
Yeah, that's important too. Often, the synthetic options like composite and also aluminum systems, which sometimes come up, they pull ahead here. They frequently use recycled content, which is great. And their low maintenance profile means fewer chemical sealants needed over the years, contributing to long-term cost savings and, well, a healthier environment around your home.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me, shifting from the surface, the look and material, down to the hidden structure underneath. Let's dig into section 3, focusing on safety, longevity, and inevitably repair. A custom builder's top priority has to be structural integrity, making sure everything meets or even exceeds modern building codes.
Absolutely. Safety and longevity are really two sides of the same coin here, especially when constant moisture is actively working to accelerate decay. A deck's lifespan is often dictated by its weakest link, and that usually tends to be the substructure, that whole network of beams and joists holding everything up.
Right, the part you don't see.
Exactly. So a professional focuses on code-compliant structures, yes, but also things like B-step support beams, really secure railings if the deck is elevated. But maybe the most critical detail, often overlooked, it's the hardware, the screws, the bolts, the connectors. They absolutely must use specialized weatherproof hardware and fasteners.
Okay, why is the hardware such a critical failure point in wet climates? Why not just use standard screws and bolts? Seems like overkill, maybe.
That's an excellent question, and it's definitely not overkill. Standard steel fasteners, they rust rapidly when they're constantly wet. And here's the thing. As iron oxidizes, it actually expands. It puts immense pressure on the wood around it, literally forcing boards apart over time. We sometimes call it structural creep. That's why our sources emphasize using specialized materials like high-grade, hot-dipped galvanized steel, or even better, stainless steel fasteners. They resist that oxidation process, keeping the connections tight and the structure sound. If the fasteners go, the whole thing is compromised.
Wow, okay, expanding rust. Didn't think about that. We should also touch on the footings, right? Especially for ground-level decks or decks in areas with big freeze-thaw cycles. They're literally the foundation of the whole investment.
Couldn't agree more. The footings, those concrete pads sunk down below the frost line, are absolutely essential. In cold, wet climates, those freeze-thaw cycles you mentioned can cause serious heaving if the footings aren't deep enough or wide enough. The ground literally pushes the deck up and down. This leads to instability. Also, older footings can just settle unevenly over time, making the whole deck shift, causing loose boards, maybe even risking collapse. A proper custom build ensures these are engineered specifically for your soil type and your local climate extremes.
Okay, so a lot can go wrong structurally over time if it's not built right. And what happens when inevitably the climate starts to win against maybe an older or less well-built structure? Our sources got into the common and sometimes pretty nasty deck repair issues homeowners face.
Yeah, we see common failures that often start small but escalate fast if ignored. The big ones are rotting wood, especially where water tends to pool or where boards join together, loose or popping deck boards. Water damage gets into the substructure. If you have vinyl, cracked, or peeling membranes are a problem. And as we just discussed, general structural instability often linked back to those failing footings or rusted hardware. And here's a crucial insight from the repair side. Ignoring small issues, like a tiny surface crack or a little bit of softness near a post base, is almost a guaranteed path to major structural damage later. We've seen situations where someone delayed replacing just a few bad boards and it led to the substructure failing. Then you're talking about tearing down and rebuilding half the deck. Way, way more expensive than timely repair.
So the repair process has to start with a really thorough inspection, replacing anything weakened, and then finishing with aesthetic renewal sanding, maybe refinishing, applying good quality sealants to protect against both moisture and UV damage. Sounds like you really need a life cycle approach, thinking about maintenance from day one. Okay, let's wrap up our analysis by looking at the actual experience for the homeowner and the money side of things in Section 4. The process and cost. That whole custom journey, it really should feel collaborative and, importantly, totally transparent.
Definitely. A reliable custom deck builder should walk you through a clear, proven process. No mysteries. It usually starts with a detailed on-site consultation. They need to really listen to what you need functionally and properly inspect the site, the house of connection points, drainage, all that. Then they translate that into a 3D design, ideally helping you choose the right materials and making sure everything's up to code.
Right.
Then comes the actual construction, the finishing touches. After that, there must be a final inspection. And crucially, reliable support after the job is done. That includes a clear, written warranty.
Okay, and on the financial side, transparency is key for peace of mind, right? To make sure there are no nasty surprises later, what should a listener absolutely demand be spelled out clearly in that upfront itemized estimate?
Yeah, the estimate needs to be exhaustive. Don't accept vagueness. Obviously, it lists material and labor costs, but look for the specific line items that signal a truly professional job. Things like detailed permitting and inspection fees that confirms it's legal and safe. The exact details of the warranty coverage, what's covered, for how long, and also the cost for site preparation and, importantly, debris removal. You don't want to be left with a messy construction site.
That whole process really reinforces this theme of lasting value, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Working with a builder who is trusted, licensed, insured, like some of the specialized, often family-owned businesses mentioned in the sources, it means you're not just buying a deck. You're kind of purchasing confidence, fairness, and genuine long-term value. You're paying for expertise that gets the specific engineering challenges of your exact location.
That really sums it up perfectly. The key takeaway for you, the listener, is that custom building is an essential partnership. It's designed to tackle the unique challenges of your climate, particularly if it's wet. It offers crucial guidance on materials, maybe composite for low maintenance over the long haul, maybe vinyl if you need that absolute waterproofing. And critically, it mandates rigorous safety compliance that protects your investment for years, maybe decades.
So what does this all boil down to? What's the final thought here?
Well, this raises an important question. Fundamentally, a custom deck builder acts as your guide in balancing that upfront cost against long-term performance. So if you view your deck as a serious investment, one intended to last for decades, especially in a harsh, wet climate, how much are you really saving in the short term by choosing cheaper materials or a standard non-customized build? You have to weigh that against how much you might end up spending later on major structural repairs, maybe even foundation issues for your house, because those specialized materials or the climate-specific structural design were ignored. That long-term calculation. That's probably the most valuable piece of knowledge you can take away from our deep dive today.
An essential calculation indeed for any homeowner considering this kind of project. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into custom deck building. We'll see